Today we're going to talk genetic stripe and why, honestly, it is the best recessive project that you could be in going into 2023 as a new ball python breeder. What's going on, everybody? I'm Jim with Striped Blast Pythons and welcome to the channel. Just like in the start of my last video, I have to take a second to say thank you. In the last week, my subscriber count has almost doubled here on the channel. We're quickly approaching 100 subscribers as of the recording of this video, and honestly, we went from 50 to over 90 in like 3 or 4 days. I can't say thank you enough. It truly is motivating and kind of humbling to me that many people would like to see the content that I'm trying to put out. So again, thank you. With that out of the way, let's move to today's topic of the genetic stripe. Quick disclaimer, I do have genetic stripe in my collection, and I am intending on making it a large portion of my breeding plans moving forward, so there may be some bias in this opinion. If you disagree with me, let's talk in the comments below. Genetic stripe is not a new morph. It's been around for quite some time. The original ones were first produced in 1999, but unlike many of the other recessive projects, it didn't really get the same love and hasn't been explored as well as, say, clown or pied. And this fact alone is part of why I think genetic stripe is a good opportunity for somebody trying to carve out a niche in the industry. Well, my argument for this is really aimed at somebody who's just starting out and, like I said, trying to make a name for themselves. The same concepts make it a great option for somebody just looking to get into a new project. So why do I think genetic stripe is such an attractive option in the market right now? First off is simply its low cost of entry. A lot of genetic stripe combinations can be had for relatively cheap. It's not uncommon to see both males and females in that $200 to $300 price range. I've even been seeing single gene genetic stripe females at breeding size, maybe even with a kicker gene in it, going for $500 to $600. So it's a really low cost of entry. You might argue that that's true for clown and pied as well, you know, the two big kings in the industry right now. Yes, you can get a single gene clown or a single gene pied hatchling in that same price range, but the genetic stripe stands out for more than just its low cost. While the larger recessive projects like clown and pied are similar in price point, and you could probably find one with a kicker gene, maybe pastel or enchi or something like that, the genetic stripe is poised a little bit differently in its value. While the clown and the pied are on a decline as far as their base genes, the genetic stripe has actually seen an increase in value over the last 2 years. Now, the resurgence in popularity is not actually just because people have fallen in love with the genetic stripe itself. However, because the genetic stripe clown has hit the market and it's made a pretty decent impact. The genetic stripe clown, or the Kiki project, whatever you want to call it, God, I hate that name, produces a pattern that can't be replicated, or to this point has not been replicated in any other way. A number of big breeders have picked up this project, and obviously because of that it's been put into the spotlight. And this brings us back to the genetic stripe market. People are now looking and trying to buy up genetic stripes, specifically ones that have 1 or 2 kicker genes in it, to pair to their existing clowns to make double hets and eventually work to this double recessive project. So this can really easily be capitalized on by somebody just starting out. Genetic stripe, because it was ignored for such a long period of time, has not actually been mixed in with a lot of the newer common genetics. Most of the time when you're looking on Morph Market or in the industry in general, you're seeing pastels, you're seeing bananas, you know, some lessers, cinnamon's pretty common, you know, a lot of the slightly older genetics that are common, and don't get me wrong, they make great looking snakes, but a lot of stuff that people are working with now is not so common or hasn't even been done yet at all. You don't typically see a lot of red stripe, you don't typically see a lot of spot nose. Even leopard, despite the fact that it makes a big difference in the genetic stripe, is not as commonplace. Recently somebody put in the acid. Personally, I'm looking to see what trick will do with the genetic stripe. With all these genes having not been put into the mix yet, it's got a huge potential for somebody looking to make something new. Maybe not necessarily a world's first, but something that'll allow them to stand out as a breeder, give them some inventory or something to show off. If you can get some less common genetics mixed in there, whether it's hets or eventually even making visuals, to kind of get yourself on the map. This doesn't just stop with adding codominant genes though. The double recessive genetic stripes are becoming more popular. I've recently seen a number of xanthics. The hypos are starting to explode. I saw an ultramel genetic stripe for the first time the other day. These are honestly untapped markets for somebody looking into double recessives, somebody looking to get into a project a little on the lower end. Combining some of these lower cost recessives, like the hypo and the G-stripe, for example, is a great starting point. There is an argument to be made that hypo is just as good of a starting recessive for a new breeder or somebody looking to be in a cheaper project. That said, what we were just talking about, having less combos have been made with genetic stripe, I think still poises G-stripe a bit better, just because you have more room to play and more room to really possibly stand out in the long run. While hypo is a great gene, it's been added to just about everything, so it's less likely that you're going to really stand out with it. So like I said, genetic stripe has a lot of potential for unexplored paths in terms of what you want to make with it. And because of that, of course, it leads into the possibility of making world's first a lot easier than some of the other projects you can be in. So all right, let's cover really what you can do with it, because genetic stripe does have some limitations, and I think that's part of what pushes some people off from the project itself. There's a large number of morphs that just strip all pattern, because genetic stripe itself, by its name, is a low pattern animal. It has defined or relatively bold dorsal stripe, and it eliminates a lot of the side patterning. Cinnamon and black pastel, for example, pretty much completely wash it out. GHI does the same thing, although the stripe's a little bit more defined. A lot of the darker morphs don't fare so well with genetic stripe, so you are kind of limited into what you can put into it. That said, the ability to completely wash out the pattern gives you a really cool color palette. Prime example, if you check out Garrett DeMeyer, and he made a banana cinnamon enchi genetic stripe that's straight up road cone orange. It is, in my opinion, an awesome snake, even though it has basically no pattern. My boy Helios, who I would pull out, but he's currently in with a girlfriend, he's a banana cinnamon genetic stripe, and he's basically yellow with a faint semblance of that purple on his dorsal where the outline of the stripe would be. It's a cool look in and of itself, but it's not very bold. So you have the option with the genetic stripe for going subtle or a really defined bold stripe. So as far as pattern, just because genetic stripe does reduce the side patterning, it doesn't mean you can't bring it back in or that it's gone completely. There's a number of genes. Enchi kind of blurs the stripe on the back down a little bit. Yellow belly, of course, brings in stuff from the belly. I've noticed the pastels tend to blow out the back pattern and kind of make it a little bit more fractured looking. Once again, our boy Striker is a good example of how the yellow belly and the pastel can work together to kind of make an interesting pattern. Leopard could really bring in the stripe on the back. So does Orange Dream, surprisingly. Orange Dream brings a lot of contrast in. It's really just a matter of finding the right combination of color and pattern genes to truly make the genetic stripe shine. Just goes back to, that saying that it's just finding that one gene that'll really pull it out. And I honestly don't think that's been done yet with genetic stripe. There's been some that have made a big difference, but there's a lot of opportunity out there to add to it, and somebody's going to find that wow factor. So given its low cost of entry, its low market share, and its demand is increasing, that's explaining why the value of the genetic stripe is going up. I personally don't think we've peaked on that. I think over the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to increase in value slightly. I'm not thinking it's ever going to do like what Desert Ghost did here a couple of years ago. It's not that universal of a gene. Personally, I see the value of genetic stripe continuing to increase, especially with the industry's push towards the cleaner, bolder, more contrasted looking snakes, because genetic stripe can actually do that very well. You want bold contrast, enhancer G-stripe. You want some really cool color, again with contrast, Ultramel G-stripe. I saw for the first time the other day, not in person sadly, but a picture of a true ghost genetic stripe, and man, that thing's awesome. I just feel that genetic stripe has a lot more opportunity for growth overall in the marketplace than some of these bigger ones do. And something else about the price point that I didn't really mention earlier, and this is going to be my last point to the video, you look at the highs and the lows. So again, we'll take Clown. Actually, no, we're going to take Pied for this example. And the reason we're going to take Pied is because it's one of those genes that, in my opinion, is either here or here. There's no real middle. You have a Pied or you have a high-end Pied. There's not a lot of middle ground. I personally think genetic stripe will fit in that middle range really well. Why do I think that's important? It's because a lot of people are looking to get in. This is aiming at, again, those entry-level breeders. It's a different target, a different market, in my opinion. You're not shooting for high end, and you're not trying to stay low end. Genetic stripe is a good stepping point. It has the potential to get huge, again with the G-stripe Clown, the enhancer G-stripe, stuff like that. Or it has the potential to be a $200 entry-level snake, and everywhere in between. The price curve of genetic stripe makes it a little more appealing for somebody who is maybe not looking to be a business, maybe not really fully wanting to invest, but they want something a little nicer. They want something maybe mid-range, or they're just like the person that this video is really targeted to, is somebody who's just looking to start out, get something not basic, but that has some genetics in it, something that they can play with, a project animal. Again, outside of hypo, I don't really think there is a recessive project that meets that target audience. Genetic stripe fills that gap between the pet market and the more expensive breeder market, and I think it's a gap that's underserved. So what do you think? Tell me, genetic stripe, yay, nay, good investment, not a good investment? You think it's got a big future here in the industry? What do you think? I'm not gonna lie, I have plans for genetic stripe. I am planning on getting it into multiple recessive projects here moving forward. I'm planning on trying to push it a little bit as a gene in of itself, but it's not gonna be the only thing that I produce. It's gonna be a solid platform for me to work off of, and it'll honestly be my lower end recessive, because I do intend to work on Clown and Cryptic as well. If you're in the genetic stripe project, what are you working on with it? Again, let's have a discussion below. I'll see you next time.